Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Week I Review. My name is Content Warning, frank discussion of suicidal ideation, because today I want to talk about a Tony Award-winning musical, Dear Evan Hansen. Though I saw it on Broadway and it was all fancy and good, I really think the ideal location for a Dear Evan Hansen production is in a high school auditorium. This largely because professional casting agents often seem to misunderstand how critical apparent age is to the performance of a teenage character. I remember watching the Tonys a few years back and cringing as fully grown adults sang West Side Story at each other. Having been in West Side Story as a high school theater kid, did you know in the original script for West Side Story, Tony is a sandy-haired Polak? I felt particularly invested in this travesty. Sure, the actual Broadway actor was massively more talented than I, but the sheer function of my age meant that I embodied the part better than he ever could have. You can accept romantic stupidity in a teenager that you can't in someone clearly pushing 30. Case in point, the female lead of Dear Evan Hansen in the original cast was a full decade out of high school, and you can hear it on the OBC. It's off-putting to hear a matured voice say immature things. The current cast is actually on the young side, which I appreciated because their voices aren't as polished, but their youthful idiocy feels more natural and forgivable. Oh, and the show's milquetoast depictions of issues feels like the sort of very special episode production that a high school administration would be all over. Back in college, an ex-girlfriend started me on what she called 5 things. Each night before going to sleep, we had to verbally state 5 good things about the day. They could be small but affirming, I made it through, or celebratory, I finally saw Dear Evan Hansen. It gets pretty easy after you've been doing it for a while. Harder is the capper. Something good about ourselves. I thought about this when I was introduced to the show's namesake, a letter that Evan Hansen's therapist has tasked him with writing to himself about the day that he is set to have, saying it will be good and that things are going to turn out okay. It's a hard thing for someone with social anxiety so severe he can't order food because he would have to interact with a delivery person to do. So when Evan finally produces something, it is a bleaker appraisal that no, the day wasn't great. The letter is found by Connor Murphy, an outcast with a school shooter aesthetic who, due to a wacky misunderstanding, kills himself that night with it in his pocket. His parents then have a wacky misunderstanding of their own, thinking that this letter was a suicide note written to Evan by Connor, and Evan's initial protestations to the contrary fall on deaf ears. So he goes with it. Hilarity ensues. There's a lot to unpack here, because this show is bleak as hell, and it genuinely doesn't seem to know that. Despite centering on a mentally ill kid and being spurred on by a suicide, Dear Evan Hansen definitely isn't about mental illness. Evan's whole therapy thing is dropped once the story gets underway. And the Connor Murphy that we see for most of the play is not Connor Murphy, or even like a phantom version of him. That whole song, Disappear, about how important it is to not let people be forgotten, that Connor sings, where Connor says, if you can somehow keep them thinking of me and make me more than an abandoned memory. That dude is explicitly in the text not Connor. He is Evan's inner monologue being played by the other actor while the actual Connor is being erased literally line by line, and yet it's presented as some meaningful act. What? And Sincerely Me is some straight up psychopath shit. Look at the show's poster. It's certainly eye-catching, iconic even, but something important is missing. Seriously, why the hell is that cast clean? It spends far more time with Connor's name on it than it does without, and that is so fundamental to the show that it's there. The fact that Connor did sign it, one of the most complicatedly human moments of the entire show, becomes tangible evidence of friendship that the Murphys latch onto. But no, he's disappeared. Related topic, why'd he do it? Really, why exactly did Connor Murphy commit suicide? Guess no one actually cares, huh? Because no one asks the question. The truth is that Connor is nothing more than an inconvenience. Hell, the point of Requiem is that most of his family doesn't really think he's worth remembering. But now they're being faced with something different. Zoe doesn't know how to cope, singing, "After all you put me through, don't say it wasn't true, that you were not the monster that I knew." Connor traumatized her. And now she's being met with the possibility that he actually did care, and maybe he did. His final onstage action could charitably be read that way. But the thing telling her that maybe she should play the grieving girl is the real thing that isn't true. What are we, the audience, supposed to take from all that? What are we to take from "You Will Be Found," a wonderful song that is completely meaningless? It is predicated on two lies: that Connor was Evan's friend, and that someone came to Evan's rescue when he fell from the tree. If those two things are not true, and they are not, then what is it saying? Instead, the whole song reads as this incredibly dark look at the culture of virality. Disembodied voices start liking and sharing and reposting. Random people latching onto this random video of this awkward guy on the internet talking about this person that they had never heard of and do not actually care about. And none of it's real. The video is a lie, and so is their inane ramblings in support of it. Everyone is living in Fantasyland. Some more actively or maliciously than others, but each equally fake. This could have been an extremely effective commentary and a social satire about the lies that we have to tell ourselves to just get through the day, let alone actual tragedies. But that's not what Dear Evan Hansen is doing. What about the fact that the opening number in Act 2 is undermined by its finale? Or how the underlying class stuff leads only to the conclusion that, sure, poor parents are bad, but rich parents are also bad in a different way, sort of. Dear Evan Hansen wants to have its cake and eat it too, to bring up a lot of capital I important issues and put them to catchy as hell songs to make you think that it has thematic depth. It doesn't. Again, this is a show catalyzed by a suicide that treats the dead character and his final action as a prop, and that's not okay. I was never quite Connor Murphy, but when I was in high school, I slapped a girl in the face. Not hard, not even really with intention, but I did it. The next day, I was called into the vice principal's office and told I was being suspended. I started punching myself in the head, trying to, I guess, crush my own skull with my fist. If I had had something sharp in my hand, I would probably be dead. That impulse to stop living wasn't a new one. About a month earlier, I stood at the top of a staircase, weighing the odds that diving down headfirst would actually kill and not just cripple me. It might seem like an accident. That wasn't the first either. Crying in that office would not be the last. I kind of sucked in high school, and a few more left turns, and I could have easily ended up in the same place Connor did. So I take it fucking personally that he was cast aside like that in a show that is supposed to be about giving everyone their due. I'm still here. Obviously. Most days, I know that that's a good thing. Some days, I have to actively remind myself. I still do those 5 things every night, though coming up with something good about myself day after day is as hard as ever. I've tried on multiple occasions and spent thousands of dollars of my own money trying to put together various media projects about suicide. But I've always scrapped them because in the end I realized that they were not helpful. That the message they were actually conveying, rather than the one I wanted to convey, was harmful. And I wasn't okay with that. Without something worthwhile to say there, it is really better to say nothing. But what makes this all so bizarre is that in the vacuum of the original Broadway cast recording, you wouldn't know any of this. In the music, it is only clear that Connor is dead, and not really why. And so you can listen to it with just the barest amount of cognitive dissonance, knowing that it is part of a larger problematic project while belting it out just the same. And I have been ever since Curtain Call, because I genuinely love the music in Dear Evan Hansen, every single song, and I crank up the volume and sing along while doing pretty much anything, much to the chagrin of my neighbors. If Dear Evan Hansen was nothing but its songs, this would be a cut and dried slam dunk success of a concept album. The Grammy was well deserved. But it's not that. It's an incredibly bleak story that feigns optimism, and it completely fails its characters at every turn. It didn't have to be this way. None of it was inevitable. And yet here it is. 5.0 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, that's great. If not, I'm sorry. It's a more difficult one to write than usual, for I think obvious reasons. Last week was pretty hard too. It's been an intense few weeks on the week I review, huh? Maybe next week will be more fun. I hope to see you then.